Before the first whisper of light touched the sky, there was silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the deep resonant stillness of a world holding its breath. Shadows lay heavy across the sleeping earth, and the sea, dark as polished obsidian, barely stirred. The stars kept their lonely vigil, scattered jewels against an ink-black dome, their cold fire untouched by mortal hands. All was waiting. The trees, the rivers, the wind that curled itself against the hills, waiting for the first flush of color that would break the night's dominion. And then, as if a secret door had opened in the farthest reaches of the horizon, the darkness began to loosen. A faint shimmer of rose bled upward, soft and tentative, like a blush on pale skin. It was not yet day, but the promise of it was there, delicate and irresistible. This was the hour of becoming, the breath between night's final exhale and day's first intake. And within that fragile threshold she came. Eos, the dawn, the bringer of light. Her arrival was not a march, but a caress, the gentlest unveiling of the world layer by layer. She stepped into the sky as if stepping into a lover's arms, her bare feet trailing threads of gold across the heavens. Her hair, a cascade of molten amber, spilled in every direction, catching and scattering the newborn light. The clouds trembled at her touch, curling into soft shapes, blushing with the warmth she poured into them. The cycle was as old as time. Every morning she rose from the edge of the ocean, her chariot of saffron light drawn by white-maned horses, their breath steaming in the cool dawn air. She spread the day like silk across the land, letting it unfurl over valleys and mountains, letting it seep into the smallest crevices where night still lingered. She painted the air with warmth and stirred the scents of earth and salt and the first flowers daring to open their petals. To mortals she was the gentle herald of day, the reason fields ripened and rivers glistened. To poets she was the sigh between dreams and waking, the moment when the heart feels both the ache of ending and the thrill of beginning. But there was a truth beneath the beauty, a shadow woven into her gold. Eos was not simply a goddess of light, she was a seeker.
Eternal, yes, but never whole. Each morning she lit the world, and each morning she searched it, eyes sweeping the hills, the villages, the quiet shores, for something she could never keep. The immortals whispered that she was cursed, to love mortals with a hunger she could not quell, to crave the warmth of their touch and the sweetness of their fleeting breath, knowing that time would always pull them from her arms. And so, her dawns were never just the rising of light. They were the opening of her heart again and again to the possibility of finding him, the one whose mortal life would burn brighter than all the stars she left behind. The world before she came was dark. The world after she came was gilded. Yet within her own radiance was an ache that no sunrise could heal. On this morning, the horizon seemed to lean toward her, eager for her touch. The sea lay stretched and glistening, ready to cradle the first rays. The air was cool, but it carried a secret softness, as if the day ahead had already been promised something tender. Eos paused for a heartbeat before the moment of ascent, her gaze lingering on the sleeping earth below. She could feel them, the countless mortals lost in dreams, their breathing slow, their bodies curled in warmth. She imagined their hearts beating, their lips parting in the smallest sighs. And within the multitude of lives, she felt the pull, that invisible thread tugging her toward one soul in particular. Her fingers flexed, longing to touch skin not yet awake. But for now, she was only the sky's first blush. Her chariot wheels had not yet broken the line of the sea. Her horses pawed the invisible ground, the scent of brine and cold wind clinging to their manes. The veil of night still lay across the land, but already it trembled, sensing her nearness. Eos tilted her face toward the heavens, and for the briefest instant the starlight clung to her eyes before melting away. She did not look at the gods who might be watching. She had long since ceased to care for their judgments. Her heart beat not for Olympus, but for the fragile sparks below, sparks that flared into laughter, sighs, embraces, sparks that burned and were gone before the next turning of the moon. She descended not to rule, but to love, and love for her was never gentle. When the first true light broke the seam of the horizon, it was as if the sky gasped. Gold spilled into blue, pink dissolved into peach, and the sea caught fire with the reflection of her touch. Every leaf, every ripple of water, every sleeping creature began to stir. The earth drank her in greedily, as if it had been parched for centuries, though it had only been one night. And yet, beneath the beauty, there was that same quiet truth. She was not giving the world its light for free. Each dawn was an offering, yes, but also a plea.
Somewhere in the waking world, a mortal heart was about to open its eyes, and she, radiant and infinite, would see him. She would reach for him. She would feel in the marrow of her being the impossible pull between what she was and what she wanted. This morning would be no different, and yet perhaps it would be. For in the stillness just before she loosed her chariot into the sky, Eos thought she felt the faintest echo. Not the wind, not the tide, but something warmer. A call, soft and hesitant, threading through the last threads of night. And if it was real, then the day ahead would not simply be another turning of the world. It would be a step toward the one thing she had chased for all the uncounted centuries she had risen, the mortal whose love would be worth the pain of eternity. The horses shifted restlessly. The air tasted like beginnings. The stars faded, leaving her alone with the horizon, and Eos smiled, a smile that belonged not to the gods, but to the lovers who have waited too long. The dawn was ready, and so was she.
Eos was a creature of light, yet her light was never static. It shimmered and shifted with the intimacy of breath, warm where it touched, yet always moving, never allowing anyone to hold it completely. Her skin was the color of sun-warmed honey, her hair a spill of gold, so vivid it seemed to drink the air around her. But it was her eyes that betrayed her curse, eyes the color of dawn's first flush, holding the softness of promise and the ache of a love never fulfilled. Among the immortals, her beauty was a thing to be admired, but not envied, for they knew what came with it. She was not cold like Artemis, nor untouchable like Hera. She was made for closeness, for touch, for the kind of love that was born in the warmth of shared breath and the weight of an arm draped across another in the darkness. And that was her undoing. The gods had whispered of her flaw for as long as she had risen. Eos could not love her own kind. The fire within her sought something that burned too quickly for eternity to contain. She craved mortals, fragile, trembling beings whose lives unfolded in brief, brilliant arcs. The more fleeting their existence, the more fiercely she desired them. For in their eyes she saw urgency. In their touch, she felt mortality's sharp sweetness, the intoxicating knowledge that each moment could be the last. This dawn, her search had ended at the edge of a quiet shore. He was there, a mortal standing barefoot where the tide curled around his ankles. His back was to her. Yet already she knew the shape of him, the long lines of his body, the way the sea wind caught in his dark hair, the stillness of someone listening to something beyond the reach of human ears. His skin bore the sun's kiss, though not her own, and his frame held the lean strength of one who labored under the open sky. She watched the rhythm of his breath, the subtle movement of his shoulders as he inhaled the scent of salt and horizon. Eos stepped closer, her bare feet stirring nothing, her presence at first no more than the shift of warmth in the air. The mortal did not turn. She wondered if he thought her a dream. Many had. Some ran from her, unable to bear the weight of her gaze. Others fell to their knees, awed into silence. But this one, he stood as though he had been waiting. When he finally looked at her, the sea reflected in his eyes broke apart, replaced by something deeper, warmer. Not worship, not fear. Recognition. She had known this feeling before, but never like this. The thread between them was taut, humming with the inevitability of the tide. "What are you?" he asked, his voice low, carrying the gravel of sleepless nights. She could have told him the truth, that she was the first light to touch the world each day, that she had loved and lost enough to fill 1,000 mortal lifetimes. But the truth was too heavy for this moment. Instead, she answered with the only thing that mattered. "I am here for you." He smiled then, a slow, tentative curve of lips that seemed almost shy, and yet she saw the heat behind it, the curiosity, the unspoken willingness to follow wherever she might lead. She asked for his name. He gave it. She repeated it aloud, letting it settle in her mouth like the taste of something rare. Mortal names were always fragile, easily lost to time. But for her, Each one was a jewel, precious for its impermanence. Eos did not need to touch him to know the way his skin would feel beneath her fingers. She imagined the warmth, the softness over muscle, the pulse at his throat, and in imagining it, she felt the first ache of loss. It was always like this. The moment she found the one her heart would burn for, the shadow of the end would begin to form. His hair would silver one day. His eyes would dim. His skin would loosen. The very things she loved, the mortal fragility, the fleeting beauty, were the same things that would tear him from her. And yet, knowing all this, she could not turn away. She stepped closer, so near that the faintest brush of her light touched his skin. He inhaled sharply, as if a memory had bloomed inside him without warning. He did not step back. They stood like that, the tide swirling around them, the morning building in strength behind her. Her horses stamped and tossed their manes in the unseen sky, eager to race across the world. But she lingered, for this moment was hers alone.
She learned the roughness of his hands by sight, the lines etched by labor and time. She saw the faint scar along his jaw, the uneven cut of his nails. Mortal flaws, each one made him more beautiful. In her mind, she traced the path her fingers would take, along the curve of his neck, across the breadth of his shoulders, down the line of his spine. She wondered if he would shiver beneath her touch. He asked no more questions. He only watched her, his gaze moving as if trying to drink her in all at once. She knew what he saw, a woman radiant with some light he could not name, a warmth that wrapped around him like a lover's embrace. It was not fair, she thought, that she could look like this forever, while he would change with every passing dawn. The gods had made her cruel without meaning to, or perhaps they had meant it all along. For what greater cruelty was there than to make her the bringer of beginnings, yet deny her the power to keep them? And still she wanted him. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of salt and something human, the faint musk of his skin warmed by early light. She felt it settle inside her, heavy and electric. Desire for Eos was never just hunger of the body. It was the hunger to steal time itself, to freeze this mortal at the very moment she first touched him with her gaze. But she knew. She always knew. Even if she could claim him, even if she could hold him until the stars faded each night, she could not keep him. Mortality was not hers to rewrite. And so she stood in the space between longing and loss, letting the tension coil within her. The world would see only the rising sun, but here, on this quiet shore, something else had risen, something far more dangerous than daybreak.
The gods had warned her. They had told her, with the sharpness of pity disguised as wisdom, that to love a mortal was to invite grief into her immortal veins. Leave them to their own brief fates, they said. Do not chain yourself to what you cannot keep. But Eos had never been good at obedience. She rose every morning, not because Olympus commanded it, but because something in her chest ached for the world below. The divine cycle was an obligation. The search within it was hers alone. And this man, this mortal who now stood before her as if the horizon had delivered him, was more than a moment's indulgence. He was a flame she wanted to burn in, no matter the cost. The shore was empty but for the two of them. The tide's steady rhythm was the only witness to their stillness. And yet the air between them trembled, stretched taut by everything unsaid. "You should not be here," she whispered. It was the first time her voice carried the tremor of warning. "Then why are you?" His words were quiet, but they struck her like an arrow. Her lips curved into something between a smile and a confession. "Because I cannot stay away." The wind caught her hair, lifting strands that brushed against his cheek. He did not flinch. Instead, he leaned into the touch as if it were intentional. She did not correct him. It was a dangerous thing, letting herself stand this close. She could feel the faint heat radiating from his skin, the subtle thrum of his heartbeat in the space between them. For a goddess, touch was not always necessary. She could see, hear, and feel the mortal's life as if it were a glowing thread before her. But this time, she wanted the real thing. She wanted the imperfect contact of skin against skin, the mortal heat that no divinity could mimic. When she reached for him, her fingers brushed the side of his face. He stilled, the air between them tightening like a held breath. Her thumb traced the faint line of his jaw, the warmth of his skin melting into her own. "You are warm," she murmured. Though she was not describing warmth, she was truly describing life itself, that vivid pulse she could never claim for herself. "And you," he searched for words, his gaze steady on hers, "you are more than I should understand."
Her laughter was soft, but it carried the weight of lifetimes. Then don't try to understand. Just be here. The world seemed to contract around them, the horizon folding in, the sea holding its breath. Every heartbeat was a choice, and hers was a defiance against eternity's indifference. He stepped closer, the tide wrapping around their ankles like a living ribbon. When he spoke again, his voice was lower, the edges softened by something unguarded. "If I let myself, if I give you this, you will," she interrupted, though her tone was gentle. She could already feel the pull between them, irresistible as the sun's rise. Her hand slipped into his, and though his skin was calloused, it yielded to her touch with surprising tenderness. She felt his fingers close around hers, not as a prisoner's grip, but as if he feared she might vanish with the next shift of the wind. They stood like that for a time that felt outside the bounds of day or night. His gaze wandered to her lips, to the curve of her throat, to the light that seemed to glow faintly beneath her skin. She let him look. She wanted him to see her not as a goddess to be feared, but as a woman who wanted, who could ache. "Why me?" he asked at last. The question was always the same. The answer was always different.
because you are here and you are alive, and because something in you looks at the horizon as if it's waiting for it to answer back. His breath caught at her words, and she felt the moment they became an unspoken promise between them. Her light began to deepen as the morning grew, casting soft gold across his shoulders, turning the droplets of seawater on his skin into scattered stars. She wanted to trace each one with her mouth. She wanted to anchor herself to his warmth, to find some way, any way, to make this moment eternal. But immortality had its cruelty, and the gods had their ways of reminding her. High above, hidden from mortal eyes, she felt the stir of attention. The other immortals were watching. They always watched when she lingered too long. In the unseen air, a whisper reached her, not a voice, but the chill of warning.
Do not bind yourself to him. She ignored it. Her free hand slid to his chest, resting over the steady beat of his heart. She closed her eyes, listening to it, memorizing its rhythm. The sound was intoxicating, fragile and unstoppable all at once. If I could, I would keep you like this forever. And if you can't? Her eyes opened, and there was no divinity in them then, only raw truth. Then I will take every moment until I can't. His lips parted, but before words could form, she leaned in. Their foreheads touched, the warmth between them enough to drown the morning's chill. She could smell the salt on his skin, the faint trace of whatever dreams he had left behind to stand here with her. It would have been so easy to close the distance, to press her mouth to his and let the world fall away. But she lingered in that charged space, because the waiting was its own kind of intoxication. The wanting was as sharp and sweet as the having. When she finally pulled back, it was not in retreat, but in a slow, deliberate savoring, like the last taste of wine before the glass is empty. He exhaled, his voice rough. "This will end, won't it?" Her smile was faint, but it held no denial. Everything beautiful does. The tide rose, cool against their legs, as if trying to pull them apart. The sun climbed higher, and with it came the knowledge that this moment could not hold. Somewhere beyond the curve of the shore, life waited for him. Somewhere in the far vault of the sky, her duties pulled at her. But for now, she refused to release him. They stood there as the day unfurled around them, the inevitability of loss pressing close, but unclaimed. She had chosen this, to defy the gods, to risk the wound she had suffered countless times before. And he had chosen this, to take the hand of a woman whose touch carried the weight of forever. Neither spoke of the shadow already forming at the edge of their light, but it was there, in the tightening of her fingers around his, in the way his gaze lingered, as if he too feared the horizon might one day take her from him. And somewhere in the silent sky, fate waited.
The first touch was not the brushing of fingers or the press of lips. It was the way the air between them shifted, warm and charged, as if the world itself had bent closer to watch. The horizon was ablaze now, gold spilling into pink, pink melting into ivory. Her light crowned him, and in that glow he looked not like a mortal, but like a thing born for her. When she moved, it was with the unhurried certainty of tides. She closed the last breath of space between them, her hands rising to cup his face. The sea lapped higher against their legs, the water cool in contrast to the heat sparking in her palms. His eyes closed as though surrender were the most natural thing in the world. Her mouth found his, and the dawn broke all over again. The kiss was slow at first, a testing of borders, a coaxing. His lips were warm, the faint salt of the sea still clinging to them. When he deepened it, his hands sliding to her waist, she felt something shatter inside her. Not the sharp break of pain, but the fragile crack of a dam giving way to flood. Her light spilled around them in waves, soaking the sand, painting the sea's surface with molten gold. She pressed closer, the shape of his body, a map she had always known, but never traced until now. Her fingers curled at the back of his neck, pulling him into her as if closeness could be made infinite. The world outside their embrace blurred. The gulls' cries were distant, the waves a steady heartbeat. She was aware only of his breath against her skin, the flex of his muscles beneath her touch, the way he held her as if he feared she might dissolve into the morning air. She drew back just enough to look at him. In her eyes was not the cool detachment of a goddess, but the fierce, unguarded want of a woman who had finally found something worth breaking for. "You feel like the sun," she whispered, her voice raw with wonder. He laughed softly, the sound vibrating against her lips. "I thought that was you." "It is," she said, brushing her thumb across his cheek. "But this is different." She kissed him again, more urgently now, as if each moment might be the last. The light in the sky deepened, the gold bleeding into a richer, more dangerous hue. Every part of her that touched him seemed to anchor her to the earth. His mouth, his hands, his heartbeat under her palm. When they parted, it was only to breathe. She pressed her forehead to his, the tips of their noses brushing. "Tell me," she murmured, "that you'll remember this." How could I forget? His fingers traced the line of her jaw, lingering at the hollow beneath her ear. She closed her eyes, swallowing the ache that rose in her throat. "Because you will. One day." The words hung between them, too heavy for the hour, but she could not unsay them. Instead, she silenced them with touch, her hands sliding over his shoulders, down the length of his arms, memorizing each sinew and curve. She wanted to know him in every way a goddess could know a mortal, through the heat of his skin, the taste of his mouth, the sound of his breath when she pulled him close enough to erase the space between them. They sank to their knees in the wet sand, the tide curling around them like a living thing.
Her light bathed them both, turning droplets of seawater into scattered diamonds across his chest. She kissed them from his skin, each one vanishing against the warmth of her lips. Time was strange here. She could feel it slipping past them, the sun climbing higher, the day stretching forward, and yet within their embrace everything felt suspended. If she could have stopped it, frozen the world in this golden hour, she would have. He touched her hair, letting the strands slide between his fingers. "It's warm," he said softly, as if discovering it for the first time. "It's the light," she replied, though she knew it was more than that. Her light was in her, yes, but in this moment it felt as if it had been born from the space between them. She leaned into his touch, her eyes half-lidded, drinking in the sight of him. Every line, every imperfection was a reminder that he was mortal, and that one day she would stand on another shore and he would not be there. The thought pressed against her heart, but she refused to let it claim the moment.
Instead, she let herself love him, as if the end could be outrun. The kiss that followed was deeper, slower, almost reverent. Her hands framed his face, her thumbs stroking the stubble along his jaw. She poured herself into it, the warmth of dawn, the softness of first light, the fierce ache of wanting what could never last. Around them, the world brightened, but she felt none of it. Her focus was the man before her, the way his breath hitched when her lips parted his, the way his fingers tightened against her waist as she shifted closer. She wanted to drown in him, not the sea. When she pulled back again, her lips were swollen, her breath uneven. "I will remember you," she said, her voice barely above the sound of the waves. He searched her face, as if trying to read the meaning beneath her words. Whatever he found there, it made him hold her tighter. They stayed wrapped in each other as the sun rose fully above the horizon. The light that spilled over them was no longer hers alone. It was the world's now, bathing the shore, waking the sleeping villages. Soon the day would pull him away. Soon the gods would remind her of the cost. But for now, she let herself believe in the illusion that this could last. That love, once found, could stand against time's relentless tide. She pressed one last kiss to his lips, slow and lingering, tasting the salt of the sea and the faint sweetness that was only him. "Every morning I will rise for you," she murmured. "Then I will wait for you." The promise was soft, but in her heart it burned brighter than the sun she carried. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the end was already stirring. The dawn came again, as inevitable as the tide, as relentless as the turning of the stars. But in this morning's light, Eos felt the hollow ache of absence more profoundly than ever before. The sky, painted with soft hues of rose and gold, no longer shimmered with the promise it once held. Instead, it carried the weight of memories too tender, too fragile to bear. Her lover, once a flame of fierce youth and fragile beauty, was now slowly yielding to the silent hand of time. His hair, that midnight silk that once danced like waves under her touch, was streaked with silver, each thread a quiet marker of days slipping away. The sparkle in his eyes, once fierce and unyielding as the first light of dawn, softened into shadows of weariness. The bright fire dimmed but never fully extinguished. Eos watched this transformation, her heart torn between love and despair. The mortal flesh she had worshipped in whispered kisses and lingering embraces betrayed its nature with every fleeting breath. Time, that merciless sculptor, carved its lines deeper each day, and no matter how she wove her light or begged the gods for mercy, the tide could not be turned. She tried to slow the rising sun in secret moments before the world awoke, weaving threads of gold and rose that stretched the fragile hours of their union. She lingered on the horizon longer, wrapping the world in a softer dawn to shield him from the harshness that followed. But the day demanded its due. The sun climbed higher, and the mortal strength waned beneath its weight. Their moments together grew sparse, each one precious like dew upon a fragile petal, shimmering with fragile hope. She treasured every sigh, every trembling breath, every whispered word that passed between them like a secret only they shared. Her hands memorized every contour of his skin, the curve of his jaw, the pulse beneath his wrist, the warmth of his palm clasping hers. Yet inevitability pressed closer with every sunrise. One morning, before the horizon blushed with light and before the waves kissed the shore, she found him still, his chest no longer rising, his breath a silent echo in the cool air. The warmth she once held in her arms had slipped away, leaving a stillness that wrapped around her like a shroud.
Eos's light dimmed, not in power, but in sorrow. The dawn she brought was tinged with muted rose. A soft morning spilled across the sky. The world awoke beneath her touch, but within her chest bloomed a hollow ache, sharp and endless. She rose as always, compelled by the unyielding cycle she could never break. Her feet carried her to the edge of the world where night fades and day is born. The light she cast was no longer a joyous celebration, but a quiet elegy, a lament carried on the breeze that stirred the waking earth. The gods, seated in their high thrones, watched with unreadable faces, bound by fate's cruel decree. Eos was cursed to shine forever, to birth the dawn each day, and yet to bear the weight of loss that each morning brought. She was the eternal paradox, giver of light and bearer of grief. Her radiance cloaked her like armor, masking the fractures beneath. To the world she was the goddess of dawn, beautiful, eternal, unchanging. But beneath that brilliance was a heart bruised by every love she had ever held and lost. Her immortality was a chain forged of gold and shadow. Each morning she awoke to the light of a new day, but in her soul the night stretched long and cold. She mourned in silence, her tears hidden within the rays of sunlight that bathed the earth. She wandered the shores where they once met, her footsteps tracing the edges of memories too fragile to grasp. The breeze whispered faint echoes of his laughter, the ghost of his touch, the fading warmth of promises spoken beneath the rising sun. Eos reached out to the empty space beside her, fingers brushing the salty air, aching to feel once more the shape that had vanished. The ocean breathed against her skin, its endless rhythm a cruel reminder that all things must change, all things must pass away. And yet, despite the solitude and the sorrow, her love endured, an eternal flame flickering in the dawn's soft glow. It was a love that defied time, that burned brighter for the pain it carried.
She carried his memory in every ray of light she spilled across the sky, a silent hymn to the beauty and fragility of mortal life. Each morning, as the world woke beneath her touch, Eos whispered his name to the breeze, sending it drifting across the waking earth. Though her voice was soft, it carried across mountains and seas, through forests and cities, touching hearts she would never see. "Remember me," she murmured to the wind, "as I remember you." The dawn was a gift, but also a burden, a promise kept to the living and a farewell to the lost. Sometimes, as the sun climbed higher, she allowed herself a moment of stillness, gazing long and hard at the horizon where earth and sky blurred in a seamless line. She imagined him there, waiting, watching, a part of the eternal cycle as much as she was. But the truth was sharper than the brightest dawn. She was bound to this endless turning, while he belonged to a fleeting moment in time. Each sunrise was a knife twisting in her heart, each sunset a balm of memories too sweet to bear. The light she brought was a reminder that nothing lasts, not even love, yet also a testament that some loves echo beyond the boundaries of time itself. In the quiet hours before the world stirred, Eos would sit upon the cliffs, letting the cool sea breeze play with her hair, watching the light stretch across the water like liquid fire. She traced the edges of her grief in the shadows that grew and faded with the tide. She knew she would rise again, as she always had and always would, a dawn that kisses the earth each day, yet mourns in every golden breath. Her heart was a fragile vessel, filled with light and sorrow, love and loss entwined like the roots of an ancient tree. And so she remained, the first light, the tender awakening, the soft kiss of morning, and the last sigh of a love that could never stay.
To love what is fleeting, that is the eternal paradox Eos embodies. Bound by immortality's unyielding chain, yet driven by a heart that beats with mortal longing, she carries the weight of 1,000 dawns. each one a promise and a farewell, each one a gift wrapped in bitter-sweet light. Her essence is woven with the fragile threads of transience. Each morning she rises, spilling golden hues across the sleeping world, her radiant touch coaxing life from shadow. Yet beneath her luminous glow lies a deep, unspoken ache, a yearning for warmth that will always slip away like mist at sunrise. How strange it is to live forever and love briefly, to reach for a mortal heart burning with the fierce, untamed fire of youth, knowing it will falter and fade beneath time's relentless march. To feel passion's flame flare bright and beautiful, only to watch it die, leaving behind only smoke and memory. Eos's love is a bittersweet symphony, a dance between light and darkness, presence and absence. She is the eternal dawn, promise of day, and harbinger of inevitable loss. What does it mean to love in such a way? Is the pain worth the fleeting joy? Is longing a cruel punishment, or the very essence of love's profound beauty? These questions stir within her, whispered by the cool morning breeze and carried on the rising light. They echo in the quiet moments before the world awakens, when night's final shadows retreat and the first rays kiss the horizon. The gods watch silently, their faces carved from stone, their decrees unbreakable. They see her shining brilliance, but cannot grasp the solitude that lies beneath. To them she is dawn's radiant flame, a celestial body fulfilling her role with unending grace. But Eos knows another truth, the loneliness that blooms like a quiet flower in the early light, the hollow ache that no sunbeam can warm. She loves as mortals do, with a fierce intensity that defies her endless existence. She holds her fleeting lovers close, savoring the brush of skin, the whispered words, the fragile promise of touch. Yet each dawn brings the cruel reminder that what she holds is not hers to keep.
Time, the silent thief, steals all that is mortal. Her lovers age and fade, their youthful fire extinguished, their warmth lost to shadows. And she is left, a solitary flame burning at the edge of the world, bright, eternal, but aching. Eos's radiance becomes a veil, masking the scars etched deep within her soul. Her immortal beauty conceals the wounds inflicted by love's inevitable end. The dawn she brings is both gift and curse, a tender awakening for the world, a reminder of all she has lost. She scatters light like a fragile promise across the sky, each ray a tribute to fleeting love and enduring sorrow. She walks the boundary between night and day, a solitary figure bathed in gold, her silhouette etched against the awakening heavens.
The wind carries faint echoes of laughter, whispers of lovers long gone, the ghost of a touch that lingers like the last warmth of a fading ember. Her eyes scan the horizon endlessly, searching for a spark of that elusive warmth, a sign, a memory, a hope. But each day the light reveals the truth she cannot deny. Love for her is a flame that cannot be held, only cherished in its brief blaze. Yet it is this very impermanence that shapes her existence and defines the meaning of her love. For how could love be true without the ache of loss? How could dawn be cherished if it stretched endlessly without end? Perhaps love's brilliance is born from its fragility. The brief flame burns brighter because it must eventually fade. The sweetness of a stolen moment is made more precious by the knowledge that it is fleeting. In this fragile dance, Eos finds her purpose and her pain intertwined. She is light and shadow, joy and grief, passion and solitude. Her story is a quiet hymn to the beauty of impermanence, a testament to the courage of hearts that love despite the certainty of loss. She teaches us that even eternal beings are not immune to longing, that love's power lies in the willingness to feel deeply, to risk heartbreak for the chance to know connection. Is love's pain a burden or a blessing? Perhaps it is both, wrapped in the golden light of dawn.
Eos will rise again tomorrow, and the day after that, each sunrise a fragile promise renewed. Her silhouette will burn bright against the sky, eyes forever searching, forever longing, forever loving. In her endless quest for warmth that slips away like morning mist, we glimpse the very essence of existence, a fragile, fleeting spark that shines brightest because it will one day fade. And as the world awakens beneath her gentle touch, Eos's light reminds us that even in loss there is beauty, even in sorrow there is grace. She carries the memory of every whispered goodbye, every fleeting embrace, every tender moment etched into the fabric of the dawn. Her love is the fire that ignites the morning sky, the breath that stirs the waking earth. Though transient, it is eternal in its echo, a light that will never be extinguished. As the first rays spill across the horizon, painting the clouds with hues of rose and gold, Eos stands alone, a goddess caught between two worlds, immortal yet longing, radiant yet broken. She is the eternal dawn, the first light, the soft awakening, the last sigh of love's fleeting flame. And so, beneath the vast expanse of sky and sea, she continues her endless journey. Her figure dissolves into the golden light,
her eyes searching the horizon's edge, forever reaching for a warmth that will always slip away. This is the legacy of Eos, the dawn that rises with hope and mourns with sorrow, the eternal heart that beats beneath the light, a reminder that to love is to risk everything, and that in that risk lies the true meaning of life itself.